I'm ChosenArchitect, and this is All The Mons. Now, last episode, we got ourselves a Charmander. Well, and many other Mons. And certain Pokemon, like Charmander, for example, they can take a long time to kind of wait for and to catch. And if you happen to catch one and its stats aren't all of that great, for example, with its base EVs, we can technically fix it. So you don't have to really worry about catching more than one of them or even breeding them up through the ranks, which can take a tremendous amount of time. And so here at Rocket Labs, we are going to take this a step further, and we are going to fully automate the process of generating the materials needed in order to manipulate our Mons stats. Yes, this is going to be good. First though, I would like to level Charmander up and also evolve Charmander. Let's go ahead and get all of that done. Charmander, evolve into Charmeleon. Oh, I love these animations. They're so good. And I can't wait to have a have a Charizard on the team. Like, this is definitely going to be nice for certain situations. Oh, Charmeleon, you're so angsty. All right, well, I think also one more of these. And there we go. We are now at level cap, and we'll evolve it again into Charizard. Oh, this is so nice. But yes, stats. But before we get started with stats, we're going to have to do some work to our AE system, which is going to make life a lot easier. Oh, that is sick. Also, Charizard is one of the Mons that does have a flying ability that is really, really nice. Probably one of the best starters if you want the ability to fly right off the bat. Even those wings do appear awfully tiny. I don't know. Very tiny, but I mean that walking animation, that is pretty sick. So how exactly are we going to go about increasing our Mons stats? Well, we need to make a couple of different things. First of all, we need to make ourselves some XP candies and get those automated in a special way. Those all start from a couple of different resources, Skulk and Honeycomb, which makes sense. Honey is sweet, and also Skulk is filled with experience. Now, once we go through the process of leveling these all the way up to XL candies, these XL candies can then be used to make other types of candies. These candies allow us to boost the IV stats by 1 each time they're consumed, which is actually pretty cool. And there's even some special items that can fully lower IVs in case you want certain stats to also be completely drained. Then on top of that, we could technically automate the ability to make all of these different medicines. And these medicines are going to allow us to modify the EV or effort value stats. So by doing this, we should be able to make some of the most powerful Cobblemon, and making sure they are the best that they can be, making them the most optimal during our, well, trainer battles. But now to make them optimally, I think it might be time to upgrade our AE system even further. And to do this, we can use a mod called Extended AE. On top of Extended AE, we are going to be diving a bit deeper into Super Factory Manager, and I will be sharing some pretty awesome code by the end of the day's video, so you're definitely not going to want to miss that. And so now, if you're enjoying videos like these, definitely click that subscribe button. I know that there may be some of you watching that definitely haven't done that just yet. Look at that guy peeking over there. But now back to Extended AE. The hardest part about getting into Extended AE is just simply getting enough intro, but thankfully we do have an intro seed that we can make. We just have to get over that initial barrier. Now, I'm going to need about 144 intro to be able to make the seed, and something that's going to help accelerate this process in getting all 144 is by just clicking with an intro seed on a Fluix block and then have accelerators surrounded in a position that is very much like this, which is going to allow us to sort of maximize the amount of space that things are getting charged in. For example, this right here in the back, and then I've got to rotate this one. And we need to make sure that it is pointing in the correct direction. And we can just rotate this with a wrench. There we go. And so now all sides are facing into this block, which should accelerate its growth. And then yet again, we want to make sure we're maximizing our fortune. And beautiful, we're collecting intro crystals, and this is growing about as fast as we can get it to currently grow. Problem is this is not flawless. So this does degrade over time, and already after a couple of harvests, this is already degraded down to this half energized Fluix, which means we're going to have to re-engage the seed until we hit the amount, or until we hit a certain amount of intro crystal. And that amount is 32 because once we reach this amount, we can actually use our advanced AE reaction chamber to make 64. So long as we have this intro dust and we can make this quite quickly, we can get 64. And then we can break 32 more down and we can create a loop. And that loop is really going to help speed up this process. We just got to get to the initial 32. And beautiful. I can now toss this in, let it process up, and this is just going to produce the intro dust for us. I mean, this process right here is not too bad at all. We'll toss this in. That goes in and completes, and now we have 64, and we just rinse and repeat till we hit the 144 that we're going to need. With all this intro, this is so nice. We can make the compressed block, which is going to be required for us to make the seed. Back down into the seed room, toss this here, and there we go. This seed is going to save us so much time. And I'll just plop this down here. Now, why exactly do I want to get into extended AE? Well, it's going to allow me to simplify my cable network. So we don't have to do the crazy thing of laying cables down everywhere. We can localize where exactly we want our cables at the cost of a little bit of power. And it's also going to allow us to get rid of a lot of these inscribers. Every inscriber that we currently have a press in, we can simplify down with extended AE into just simply one machine, giving us the room for more automations. Really, it's going to speed everything up, which is going to be very, very nice. But the big thing I want is easy wireless access to all of our individual cables and channel lines here. And I think if you've dived into AE already, you're going to want to set this up. See, what I've done is I've created separate hallways that have these nice little 9 tall rooms by 7 wide. And what I can do is I can tap one of these channels off of here, and I can put them into each room, allowing us to have these individual rooms for fun little automations that we can set up. Now, the machines that are going to make all of this possible are going to be a crystal assembler, which we now should be able to craft, which is the first thing you need to craft. Then we also need circuit slicer, and we also probably want to replace our current processing setup with an extended inscriber, which is basically like 4 inscribers in one. And just a little tip here, as we are going to need to make more presses, you can either go out and farm more, or for each press you have, you can take an iron block and just simply place an iron block in here, and the output will be a copy of your press. Now, after getting these machines set up, what becomes absolutely wild is the fact that we can now replace all of these inscribers right here with just a single circuit slicer and a crystal assembler. With these machines, you just want to make sure the auto export is on and you have the pattern provider set. And the circuit slicer is going to work the same way that all of the presses did. However, you feed this blocks of resources. And its processing list is kind of ridiculous, but look at how much faster it should be able to process things. Now I've gotten all my patterns ready to go. Something else I recommend, setting this to blocking mode for the crystal assembler specifically. You don't have to really worry about that for the circuit slicer, but this is going to allow us now to make these things so much faster. Make sure to toss in some upgrades, get these guys running as fast as possible. And so anytime we need a circuit, I mean, that should be really easy for us to get up and running. Let's see, like for example, calculation processors. Let's say I want 20 of them. Look how quickly they pop in here and get produced. It's actually absurd. Just got to set my output side. There we go. And after setting that up, our extended inscriber works just like a regular inscriber, except it's 4 times as many. So we can set this to stack 1, so it only does 1 at a time. I typically like to do this so that way it spreads out between each one, and all of these will only hold 1 item at a time. So you can have it stacked to 4 or what have you. Doesn't really matter. I like to usually set it to 1. And then we'll set our auto export to make sure it's turned on. Outside of that, it just works like a normal inscriber. And so all of these recipes should be able to form much faster. With this stuff in place, this gets us access to the wireless connectors, which we are going to need a wireless setup kit in order to connect those connections. So once we have that crafted, we are ready to rock and roll. With all of that crafted, and we now have ourselves some wireless connectors, we need to place the connectors in. And so I want to use them to tap into our channels. So right here, I think would be a good spot for a wireless connector, but something you may notice, my other cables are connecting to it. Thankfully, you can do just like we did with everything else, and you can color this by shift right clicking. And once you do, this is now colored to the red channel. So it's only going to be connecting to that one line, which is exactly what we want. And then I can right click on this with our setup kit, and just take my other connector wherever I want it. Let's say we want this to go in this room, and then I right click, and now this is linked up. But by the way, this is using 111 AE per tick. And if we go to our controller and we switch this over to FE by clicking here, we should be able to see how much overall this is costing us, because it is kind of expensive on power. Yes, these two alone are costing us 445 FE to have that wireless access, but I think it's totally worth it. Power is 100% expandable, and the convenience of these are unmatched. Oh, and once these are connected to a network, you can now see, kind of, that they do take on the actual color. Now that I've made all of this stuff nice and easy for us, I've decorated the rooms a little bit. So these are going to be our 2 automation rooms for messing around and playing around with the automation of candies and all kinds of fun stuff. For the most part today, we really need to focus on just getting XP candies started and automated. Everything else is going to be a little bit different, as we're going to have to automate brewing stands. But for this operation, getting XP candies is going to be kind of awesome. And this room is going to fit that setup perfectly. Now let's talk about how these XP candies scale. So to be able to make your first set of XP candies, the pot makes a single XP candy. Then to be able to make a small XP candy, this requires 6. So in order for us to make one of these XP candies, we need 6 of the base that needs to be produced. And then going up from there, we just need 3 of each all the way up until we hit the extra large candies. But the thing about the extra large candies is there's a little bit of math involved for how we get this and how we get to these numbers. To be able to optimally set this up, we would technically need 162 pots that are constantly producing extra small candies. Then for the process of taking the extra small to small, we would need 27 pots. And then to go into the medium, we would need 9 of those pots, and then 3 for the extra large candies, and then finally just 1 for the extra large. That is to make 1 per pot operation. What I plan on doing is dividing this by 3. So it's not going to be as fast. It is going to be a bit slower, but we're going to take all of those values and divide it by 3. What I should end up with is only needing 54 pots for the base operation, and then 9 for the next, and 3, and then 1, and then 1. So what's awesome is 54 pots fit perfectly between this wall and this wall, which is going to be absolutely beautiful. I love it. And in the middle section, we can have our scale up from our extra small candies. But now we also need to think about how are we going to actually automate these pots, because they're not super easy to automate. Let's just take a look at what makes this a problem. So when we are trying to make extra candies, the problem with just piping things into this is we can end up with overfill. So we have this cooking pot on here, we put our candy ingredients in, and it starts working. But as soon as another item potentially goes in another slot, the operation stops working. And so we're back to another need for regulation. And now there are a ton of mods that we could technically use for item regulation and sending the items in. And you notice that it is kind of directional here. We can go ahead and throw in items and they will start going in, much like this. And the bottom is considered the output. But we can't technically pull from the sides and stuff like that. It is very much side driven. So if we have a pipe from the pipes mod and we try to pull out, or actually a better one would be just like a pipe from here. Let's say we are going to pipe from this side out. Well, it doesn't work. You have to pull from the bottom. And you notice all of our ingredients just got pulled out of the side. So the sides are very open and all kinds of weirdness is happening. So when you have situations like this, I think the best mod to be able to automate this is going to be SFM or Super Factory Manager. Why SFM? Scalability. Now, all of the SFM code that we are going to use today, I will have it pinned in the general channel, so definitely check the pins over on my Discord, link down in the description below. If you want a direct copy and paste, that is going to be linked there. So now let's dive into this. To be able to get a base code setup that will allow us to expand, we need to set this up for our basic machines right here. So let's go ahead and close the lid on all of these so we can interact with these. And I have 5 of them because we have 5 steps. We have our initial step, which is 1, this one, which is 2, 3, 4, and then finally large candies, which is going to be 5 steps. So we need 5 separate pots, 5 different labels, And then we're going to have two inputs because the two things input into this is going to be skulk and honeycombs. So this will be our skulk and this will be our honeycombs. And then we need a destination for all of our products to end up after they are done. And after they are done, well, they're simply going to go in here, and we should end up with taking these two products and turning it into large or extra large XP candies. And this is where I want to challenge you guys to try and do this potentially before watching this section and try to see if you can't come up with a solution to this. Of course, I am going to show the solution to this, but it would be kind of a fun challenge, especially if you're new to SFM and you're kind of learning the mod. And let me know down in the comments below if you were successful with this. First thing first, we need to use a simple program. We're just simply going to put that in, and we are just about ready to go. I typically like to name it, and I'm going to call this PokéXP. Now I'm going to remove everything from the center, and I want us to look at something very specific that's going to help us. This, which is going to allow us to regulate. When we do output retain and then a value, we can specify to only keep one in an inventory, which is going to be nice. We don't necessarily have to do that, but it is going to save us on initial resources whenever we start up the automation. And so throughout all of this, our goal is to have retain one on our output, making sure that it keeps that one only inside of an inventory. Now, from the start here, we definitely need to pull from our containers. So that's going to be our first step, is we are going to input from our comb chest and we're going to input from our skulk chest. This is just simply telling SFM to pull items out of here. And now this is where we get to use that output retain, because this is where we're going to send our first setup here, where we're going to make sure we save done here. We're going to say this is our first pot that we're going to be sending to and doing this recipe right here. So we want to make sure to keep one of each inside of these slots. And slots are something we're about to dive into. But yes, we're going to say retain, and then we are going to tell it one, and then what is it going to retain? This is where we need to say specifically by using an asterisk here just to simply cover comb to say, hey, send comb or skulk. I would prefer, though, to do it in the order that is shown here. So we have skulk first and then honeycomb. I don't necessarily think that matters, but if we say skulk, we'll make sure that this is the first thing that goes in, and that is covering that item. If you spell it right, you got to make sure you spell it right. Now, if you plan on having multiple setups, this is where we're going to use another little function here that is going to be two each. And this is basically going to allow us to connect to more than one. So that way the program knows, hey, there's more than one on the network. Do this operation to each pot. And now is when we need to define our variable, which is going to be our pot. So I'm just going to call them pot just to make it simple, and I'm going to identify them in a number between pot 1 to pot 5. But here's where things get a little bit more confusing. This is where we need to tell SFM specifically what slot inside of this pot that we want it to go into. But how do you know what slot is what? Like, how do I know what identifier tells me what these slots are? Thankfully, SFM provides a function that allows us to work. If you hit Control and I together by default, it will pull up SFM's slot identification menu, where we can now see every single slot number that is inside of this container. And this is going to be incredibly powerful later on when we go into automating certain things, especially for these slots to the right. But for right now, we can see this is slot 1, which is where the skull needs to go, and slot 2, which is where we want our combs to go. And then slot 0 is actually our output slot, which we're going to take advantage of later on too. So continuing on for our output line, if we want to tell this specifically to go into a certain slot, we say slot and then space and then that slot number. And by the way, if you're wanting references to all of this, if you click view examples, you can see slots and sides, and it talks about all of this here. Now, I'm doing this in a very specific way because I have tested using the commas and covering it like this, but you can run into some issues doing this. So I am going to individually define all of these different outputs. Now, as far as the next line goes, it's simply copying the top line, and then we replace skulk with comb, and then we replace our slot number with slot number 2. And now we can test all of this. So we can shift right click to pull the labels from here into our gun, and then we can just basically right click into the world, and we can say, hey, where's combs? combs are right here. Hey, where is Skulk? Skulk is right here. And then where's our pot 1? And so we'll say this is pot 1. Once we got that done, we just right click to push this into the container. And already you can see this is functioning, and it only sent 1 here and 1 here. And there's our output. So with that knowledge, the rest of this should be quite easy. Some important information: after each one of these processes that take place, I do recommend that you run a forget. So that way this whole section right here runs, and then it forgets these inputs. That way our next line, whenever we start it, is going to be its own thing. Now, speaking of our next step, we just need to pull from our output slot. And you can see right here, our next step is to pull extra small, as basically defining, so long as it has X and S in it, from the pot from slot 0. So this is just simply pulling from pot 1 and going to slot 0. And then we're doing almost the exact same thing that we did out here. We are then going to output the thing that we just pulled, which is going to be the extra small candy, and we're going to send that, retaining 1, to each slot 1 through 6. And we're going to continue doing this through all of the pots until all is said and done. And your code at the end of it should look very similar to this right here, where we go from each section. You can see I did label the sections. Section 1, we're taking from the pot. Section 2, extra small to campfire pot 2. 3 from small to campfire pot 3, and then we have medium to pot 4, and then large to pot 5, and then finally we're pulling from pot 5 our extra large, and we're simply going to output it to a new label that we're going to call extra large candy. And then we get this for scalability. Yes, this is all of the pots that we are going to need for this section. Essentially, I have 54 pots when everything is divided evenly, and all of these black pots you see right here are exclusively going to be making extra small candies. And then when labeling, we're going to have these 9 individual pots right here. These are going to be making the small candies. This section of 3 is going to be producing medium candies. And then finally, we're going to have a pot that is just making large candies, and then the final pot is taking large candies and essentially turning them into extra large candies, which will then be pumped down into this inventory. Now, behind all of these are SFM cables. I am running the SFM cables directly in the back, and they're just running along the side. And then these are going to be our 2 input barrels. Now, something that's pretty slept on with SFM is actually the ability for you to facade these cables so you can make them look like anything you want. And you can utilize the network tool to do this, and you can see all of the tooltips right here. Now, instead of barrels, I think for this, what I'm going to hook up to this is going to be RF Tools crafters. And the SFM cables should be able to pull from these crafters and pull specifically from the output slots, which we're going to utilize. Now, on the RF Tools crafter, we need to select a recipe here. And this one, for example, let's say we're going to turn this one into Skulk. We want this to be all set the same. Nothing we have to worry about here other than clicking here and then saying this recipe I want to apply, and that will now always craft so long as it has some power. Same thing's going to happen over here. We're just going to say, hey, honeycombs, we're going to craft. The exit here means that the output after it's crafted is going to go down here, and this is going to be an input where we're going to send our essence. Speaking of essence, we just need to drag the essence into our export buses and start those processes. So over here, boop, we'll place that one in, and then on this side also, perfect. And this is going to start filling up, and then we need to give this some power. So I'm just going to apply some power in here for right now. Bam, beautiful. It doesn't even need all that much power. And as soon as it receives the product, it's going to start crafting it and sending it into here. And I think for our exporters, just using 1 acceleration card is probably going to be more than enough. Now we are ready to go. All we have to do is shift right click to pull the labels into our label gun, and then right click in the air and start to set our positions. So combs are over here, and then we have our Skulk over here. And then we have our pot 1s, which all of these are going to be considered pot 1s. And I think you can hold down Control and click, and it's going to select all of the inventories that are connected to the one you clicked on. And so all of these are easily labeled as pot 1. And then pot 2, these I will just click. And you do have to make sure all the pot lids are closed, by the way. Pot 3, then we have pot 4, and then finally pot 5. And once all is said and done, we are ready to just simply push by right clicking And once this happens, all of these pots are now going to kick off. Ugh, and you get a really loud noise. So I do recommend setting a filter and searching like pot. And I think it is simply the pot finish is the ones that you want to sort of get rid of. Otherwise, it is such a loud sound. What's really fun is popping in here, seeing if everything is working. You can see the mediums built up. There's our first large candy. Oh, and there's our 3 XL candies. And what I'm noticing is it's not pulling the XL candies for some reason. And this is where troubleshooting, I mean, sometimes comes into play. So I may have done something wrong here on the final output where it says XL from. Or I didn't do anything wrong in the code and I just simply forgot a label, which I definitely did. I just forgot to set the XL candy output label. And all I have to do to fix this is set it and then right click. And now our extra large candies go into whatever inventory is currently here. So you know what? Instead of using this, I'm just going to use a framed drawer since I think it's going to be a little bit nicer looking. And then we'll make sure to set that. And there we go. Beautiful. And I think this is going to produce more than enough extra large candies. I really don't think we're going to need anything more than this. Now, honestly, this is only the start because these XP candies are going to make us exponentially powerful. But I really wanted to get this out of the way because this is an incredible turning point for us, especially here at Rocket Labs, where we only get powerful. Now, in order for us to turn this into higher tier things and be able to make those extra candies, we're going to have to go on a significant berry run where we are going to have to collect every berry possible. And that is going to be a huge task in itself. So I think better suited for next episode, because today we are all out of time. And I hope you did enjoy today's episode and hopefully you learned something new, whether it was about extended AE or about more SFM crazy technology. And if you did learn something new, click that subscribe button, give this video a huge thumbs up, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next episode. And with that, it's now time for me to thank the amazing supporter of today's episode. And that amazing thanks is going to go out to Elinegdra. Thank you so much for your amazing support and choosing to support me over on the Discord by becoming a Discord premium member and supporting my content in one of the best ways possible, absolutely going above and beyond, you absolute boss. Gaining access to supporter servers and all kinds of other fun perks. So guys, I appreciate seeing you. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. And as always, thanks for watching.